in this YouTube video, I'm going to be talking about why is it such a common thing for your life to like fall apart right after you go through something like a spiritual awakening. We're going to be talking about this very common theme that happens to many people who are going through their spiritual awakening journey. It has happened to me, and maybe it has also been something that has happened to you or you're going through it right now. I would say the most overwhelming thing, especially that has happened to me, was when I felt like I had to start all over again. I felt like life fell apart. Like everything I knew, everything that I was building, it kind of like crumbled right in front of my eye. Life completely fell apart. And this was like the most scariest thing because it happened like really young. Like I was 22 at that time, and it felt like, all this time I spent building my life out, building a career, building something for myself. Now all of a sudden I had to kind of start all over again. Like I had to scratch all of that and start all over again. I graduated college. I was around 22 years old when I graduated college, and I was just starting to begin my life. Like my life was just starting, and it felt like the universe was saying, like, scrap that. That part, that season of your life is now over. We want you to do something else. We want you to take all that you have built, and sort of like take some of the skills, some of the knowledge, and start all over again, which can be, as I said, very overwhelming. For me, it felt like I couldn't really go into the career that I want, like I studied for. Like, I thought I'm going to become like a school teacher and my entire life is going to be that. But the universe was sort of like telling me through my resonance and my dissonance that this might just not be it. This might have been something that were preparing you for something else. This was something that was giving you the skills and the knowledge that you needed to unlock something else within yourself. So it really felt like every time I thought about even going into that career field, it felt like I felt blocked off from it. Like energetically, that was not my vibration. Energetically, I couldn't even think about it because it felt like that was not me, that was not who I am. And sometimes I would actually say, like, that's not who I am. Like, I know that there must be more out there. Like, I feel like I'm destined for something more out there. So for me, it felt like I couldn't really go into the career field that I built a foundation for. Like I was about to begin that, and it felt like I couldn't, like I had to like, throw away that entire career and start all over again. It was not only that, it was also like, as I'm going through everything, like my vibration was changing. So my environment, I remember I was living in a home that was very much different from this home. And, it was a smaller home, but it also felt like energetically, I couldn't really live there any longer. Like I had to change, I had to move. The environment was it felt like the energy there was very dense, it was very heavy, and it wasn't resonating any longer. I started to outgrow my environment. It was something that I experienced as a result of like raising my vibration and raising my frequency, where I couldn't really even go into the home that I was living in because it felt like sometimes I would enter it and feel like so much of fatigue, feel very tired, and I was just experiencing so much of dissonance when it came to the home environment that I was living in. So that started to fall away a little bit. Like, okay, I can't go into this career, I can't live here. Also, like friends that I had was also kind of like falling away a little bit. Like they were becoming more distant, and it felt like they were becoming more out of reach, and new set of friends were coming in, people that were much more spiritual. And that was like a little bit of a big change that I had to go through to understand what exactly was happening, like as a result of raising my vibration, healing myself. Things on the outside were changing for me, and it was changing very quickly. And so life felt like it really fell apart, and I had to begin all over again, like start all over again. And even though I didn't know what that was, like, I didn't understand it at that time, it took a couple years for me to understand why that happened and why that happens a lot when we are on our spiritual awakening journey. Like for me, I understood that the more I was increasing my vibration and the more I was coming out of like the traumas that I've gone through, my entire vibration wanted something different. It wanted a reality that was aligned to that. It wanted a reality that was in harmony with the growth that I was going through on the inside. It wanted a job that aligned with me. It wanted to attract an environment and be in a space where it felt much more energetically harmonious. As working with so many people on my spiritual journey now, I know this is a very common thing that happens. Life really asks us to leave the past behind and to start all over again when we're going through our spiritual awakening journey, because before you built your life on a vibration, a frequency that was a little bit like, from unconsciousness, from a lack of awareness. But now, because you are expanding your consciousness, expanding in awareness, it means that the things that you want in your life, the things that you need in your life, are going to be very different. It's going to be very, very different than the version of you that, was not in that frequency, or the version of you that was not going through this awakening. That version of you wanted different things because, you were less aware of the things that are much more in alignment. You probably didn't even know certain things were out of alignment. You just went about life. You got into a certain career. You stuck around with friends that you felt like it was out of alignment, but you kind of just went with it. Maybe you were also in a home environment that just felt off, but you still went with it. You still stuck with it. And so now life really asks you to reset, to restart, but from a whole different level of vibration and a whole different level of consciousness. And you start to really build your life from that. You start to find that the life that you build after your spiritual awakening, even though it's so difficult sometimes, because it takes a whole collapse of your old life to shift you into this new life. But this new life that you build after your spiritual awakening, you'll realize is one in much more harmony with who you are, your habits, your goals, your intention, one that is in much more alignment with who you are. The old life, maybe felt like it was out of alignment, and it was created from a place of trauma. Maybe you are somebody who have to go through a lot of trauma, so you kind of would build your life on that trauma. Especially if that trauma is not healed, then you start to build your life out of those patterns and conditioning and beliefs. And that life, compared to the life that you build after healing all of that, after doing all the inner work, it can be so drastically different. You look at this life and you look at that life, and you can see that not only energetically it's different, but this one, it agrees with you more. This one feels much more harmonious to you. So when your life falls apart, especially when you're going through a spiritual awakening, it's not a bad thing. It's actually a very good thing, because it means that the life that you were building was one that wasn't even meant for you. You just created it because, as I said, you were probably unaware of a lot of beliefs and conditionings and trauma. And so we build our life on that. But the moment that changes, the moment our vibration and frequency changes, everything on the outside changes as well. And your level of awareness will also ask for a whole different reality, one that matches your consciousness. I remember thinking to myself, like, I was going to go into working, using my college degree, and I definitely would think that I went down that path, I wouldn't have the tools that I've developed on this path, that I know for a fact actually that it might have taken me a longer time if I went on that path to develop. It would have definitely taken me onto a whole different path. And this version of myself that I am now, it probably would happen on that path, but it might have taken like a couple years. I would still be lost in my disorders and my traumas and, a lot of things. So For me, the universe knew exactly where it was guiding me. The universe knew exactly where it was helping me to go. One thing that I've done that has helped me so much was to just pay attention to my intuition, pay attention to that resonance, especially. Like, what do you feel resonated toward? What do you feel drawn toward? That's gonna guide you. Like, that's gonna guide you big time towards a life of alignment. Building a life out of profoundness takes time. When we build a life that comes from being unaligned or not being on the right path, then that life stands a chance of like falling falling down and collapsing very quickly because there's no stable and solid foundation. But if you build a life from a place of awareness and from a place of alignment, then that life stands a chance of being much more solid because the foundation is much more solid. As you go within, you discover the world within, you start healing yourself, you start expanding in awareness, you'll find that life wants to match that. And sometimes you have no choice but to kick out the old and really welcome the new, because you'll find that the new is actually one that is you. You know, it has the frequency of yourself. And that's why it's going to feel resonance. It's going to feel like, yes, I resonate with this. This is my thing. This is actually who I am. Not this. I thought I was this, but it was coming from a place of unconsciousness. But now I know I'm this. This is coming from a place of alignment. So thank you so much for watching this video. Thank you so much for receiving as always. And I will see you in the next video. Bye for now.